Thank you for joining me today with CEO Zone's Meet the Speaker. My objective is to curate for professional directors and CEOs their next keynote speaker, an author with a business book that would be of interest to them, or in this particular case, to offer you the simple but not easy CEO coach. Our guest today is a leader who didn't run away from his career very quickly. He started out as an engineer and then over 25 years, 10x the growth at WD-40. He was the CEO for 45 years. He's now the chairman emeritus. And Garry took the brand that we all know by the can and many of the other brands around the world from a market cap of 250 million all the way to over 2.5 billion. And he has an unheard of employee engagement rate of 93%, which I would love to dig into that. I don't think there's even companies out there that are in the business of engagement rates that have a 93% engagement rate, proving that his culture is tribal, which I'm going to ask him why tribal and not team a little bit later, but why it's tribal. And then he's the founder of the Learning Moment. And his newest book I have with me. So we got the tribal book. We have his newest book, Any Dumbass Can Do It. Welcome, Garry Ridge. Thank you so much for putting up with my long, bad introduction of you, but it could have been much longer if I'd have read your whole bio. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Bill, and pleasure to be with you. You just aged me a little bit. I was actually with WD-40 for 35 years, not 45 years. So,
I thought I
uh,
said 25, so excuse me.
well, maybe you did, but it's a pleasure to be with you, and thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. So your brand and yourself have really, I've been excited about this since we talked probably a year ago when we first started to talk, thanks to Davin at the Purpose Summit. But through learning moments, you kind of created the word there aren't failures. You created learning moments. Could you share maybe a time where learning moments really became uh, the brand, if you will, or the
Yeah,
concept?
yeah. It went back to really back to 1999, 2000. I'd just become CEO 2 years ago, and I went back to school. I literally went back to school. I enrolled in a master's program at the University of San Diego, and the reason I did that is because the one of the people that were heavily involved in putting that program together was my dear friend and my mentor, Dr. Ken Blanchard. And Ken and I are dear friends, and we wrote a book together as well. But during that master's degree, which was 2 years in length, there are a lot of things became clearer to me, and one of them was that fear in an organization is not something that generates a lot of good things. So, I said, what's the opposite to fear? It's learning. So why don't we take away the word fear and failure and replace it with a learning moment? And the definition of a learning moment is a positive or negative outcome of any situation that needs to be openly and freely shared to benefit all people. So learning became a true foundation of our organization, and that was the birth of the learning moment.
Pretty cool. So I'm positive we have professional directors, CEOs who either have a PE sponsor or somebody like that in their background, and they're hearing this and saying, okay, so we can call a failure a learning moment, but what do you do when it costs the company significant money or a potential client or a long-standing customer? How did you deal with that in the organization?
Well, you use it to make sure it doesn't happen again. Because if you don't understand, if you don't learn from it, how do you know someone else is not making the same dumb mistake somewhere else? And if it's a positive one, are you actually amplifying it and letting everyone know how they can benefit from it? I think it was the CEO of IBM many years ago. There's a story out there, and I talk about it in the book, where someone went to him and said, I guess you're going to fire me. I just made a mistake that cost you $500,000. He said, fire you? I just paid you $500,000 to learn from you. So let's go and amplify that. And a learning moment is not a get out of jail card, Bill. It doesn't substitute for incompetence or, acts of, integrity that are not with the company. But truly, I say candor in an organization is no lying, no faking, no hiding. And I believe most people in organizations don't lie. They fake and they hide. And the reason they fake and hide is because of fear. And toxic leaders in organizations create a fear-based culture. And that's why people kind of hide under the desk and keep things to themselves. And I'm sure many leaders out there have often said, I wish I knew that. Well, if they don't know, if they haven't been told, maybe they should look in the mirror or have their leaders look in the mirror, because it may be the toxic environment that's causing people to hide under their desk and just do their job. And that's why, you talked about employee engagement. One of the things that really amazed me is how many leaders and managers out there don't understand that there are two things in organizations you need to be successful. The first one is a strategic plan. And, we could all write a really nice strategic plan. Let's write it up. We take it to some nice professor. We get 70 out of 100 for it because no plan is perfect, right? But if only 30% of your people are going to work every day and enthusiastically executing against that plan, 30 times 70 is an outcome. But if you've got 80% of your people going to work every day and enthusiastically executing against that plan, 80 times 70 is a much, much bigger number. So success in an organization is truly the will of the people times strategy. And that's why when people say that this, employee engagement stuff is soft and easy, there's no way that it is. It's really about, building an organization where people go to work every day, they make a contribution to something bigger than themselves, they learn something new, they're protected and they're set free by a compelling set of values, and they go home happy. And the other reason why that's important is happy people build happy families build happy communities build a happy world. And by golly, we could do with a little happier world right now. And business touches more people every day than anybody. Yet, as you know, the statistics from Gallup tell us that 70% of people who go to work in the United States today are disengaged or actively disengaged. And that truly should be embarrassing to CEOs.
Can't agree more. Thank you. And I did make a note because I learned something new right there. Thank you. Or I'm going to try to learn it. I heard it. Now I need to implement it. So I hinted at this, but you use the word tribe in this book. You build a whole book around the word tribe. Why not just call it team like most of your peers? Where did that come from?
Well, there are some foundations that need to be in place to build a highly performing culture. And the first one is belonging. People in organizations have to know, feel like, and be treated like they belong. And you don't belong on a team. You actually play on a team, but you belong to something else. Now it could be a family, and I chose tribe, not to reflect on any indigenous group, Bill, but going back to the beginning of mankind, we are tribal, whether we like it or not. It's up to us in organizations then to describe what are the tribal attributes that you want in your organization. Now, when I was at WD-40 Company, we had tribal attributes. Firstly, we had a just cause. And the just cause of our tribe was a group of people that come together to protect and feed each other. The number one responsibility of a tribal leader is to be a learner and a teacher. If you think about, going back to the caveman, he would be teaching members of his tribe how to hunt. And if he didn't, then the tribe would go hungry. Tribes have values. So what are the values of your tribe that help people make decisions in isolation when they're way out there in the wilderness of the workforce? They have belonging. So there's rituals that are in place to show people they belong. Great tribes are future focused. So they're looking to the future. What's happening to us? What's coming at us? What do we have to be prepared for? Great tribes have specialized skills within them. So an attribute of a great tribe is, what are the specialized skills we have to have in our tribe for it to be successful? They're warriors. We're out there to win, and we celebrate. So A tribe is the power of belonging, where people know they belong and they know they matter. And that's why I called it a tribe.
Okay. And in your newest book, at least I believe it's your newest book. Oh, I'm going to show off my. There, I use my own bookmarker. But in your newest book, Any Dumbass Can Do It. I'm thinking about our audience being that multi-billion-dollar CEO, professional director. They have thousands of employees like you did across many different continents, if not all the continents. How do they operationalize this tribal feeling or the emotion of the tribe? How do you start to do that if you not
Well,
currently do?
well, firstly, you have to, as a leader, be totally transparent about the fact that people matter. Secondly, you have to have a purpose that people can align with. Our purpose was we're in the memories business. We existed to create positive, lasting memories, solving problems in factories, homes, and workshops around the world. The next thing you have is a set of values. And these are the foundation. And we had a hierarchical set of values that we said anybody anywhere in the organization should be able to make any decision they want at any time of the day in any continent, because without having to wait till some hierarchical office opens, if they use our values to make those decisions, we wanted to set people free. So do you have a people, do people matter? Do you have a clearly defined purpose? And do you have you got a set of values that protect people and set them free? Now, just want to mention one thing if I go back to the book. I
Sure.
want to just, people may wonder why the book is called Any Dumb Ass Can Do It. And I want to get clear around this. The word ASS in this book does not refer to anybody's bottom or posterior. There's a theory behind that. It's about our good friend, the donkey. And, donkeys get a bad rap, Bill. People think they're stubborn or slow, but let me tell you the truth. Donkeys are steady. They keep going long after the others give up. They're loyal companions. You can count on them when the road gets rough. They're practical, not flashy. They know how to conserve energy and to get the job done. And while they might not always rush into things, Bill, that caution often keeps them safe. So when I say any dumbass can do it, what I really mean is you don't need to be brilliant to be a great leader. You just need a bit of courage, a lot of care, and the humility to keep learning. Because, like the donkey, leadership isn't about showing off. It's about carrying the load, sticking with the journey, and helping others get where they need to go. So, those are the attributes that leaders need to carry to build a tribal culture around the world.
Uh, Thank you. And I do recall when I first got your email. I guess it was before the pre-release when we did some of our emails here for you of introducing people to the book. I thought, now why wouldn't he pick a different title? And so I literally went into CEO Plus, our community advisor, and said, why that title? And fortunately, you had, I don't know if it was Martha, your co-author, or somebody had given an interview, pre-interview, and you explained that. But I'm glad you did that because I first looked at it and went, why would he do that? But thank you for explaining that. I should have asked that of the audience. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, sure.
Uh, you have another one called soul sucking CEO. Where did that kind of term come from, and the concept of that? Because I think you have said many times, ego eats their empathy, right? So
Well, here he is. This
there
is
you
Alec,
go.
or it could be Alice, the soul sucking CEO of Fear Incorporated. And I created this character because I wanted to be able to talk about the behaviors of a leader that create a toxic culture. And this person, he or she, has a big ego. Their ego eats their empathy instead of their empathy eating their ego. They're a micromanager. They need to have their fingers in everything. They think they're corporate royalty. They really do lean into a fear-based culture. They're a master of control. They're a know-it-all. They have all the answers, even the wrong ones. They don't like learning moments. They must always be right. They hate feedback, and they do not keep their commitments. Where if you are a servant-based leader, and my friend Ken Blanchard says, saying you're a servant-based leader is a good start, but it's your behavior that makes it real for your people. So if we think of the opposite, if we think of a servant-based leader loves and involves their people. They know the power of the people. They're always in servant leadership mode. Our job is not to be a manager. Our job is to be a coach people into their best game. They're expected to be competent and they love learning moments. They know that a learning moment is one step away from some brilliant success. They're connected. They spend a lot of time in what I call the stinky locker room. They're not locked in some corner office and they're getting their shoes dirty out there talking to the people that are getting the work done. They have a harder goal, but they have a backbone of steel as well, because leadership is a balance between being tough-minded and tender-hearted. They're champions of hope. They know micromanagement is absolutely not scalable. They do what they say they do, and they treasure the gift of feedback. So there's the comparison between this person, Alec, smart Alec, or smart Alice, and a servant leader.
So that made me think of chapter. I got to check here. Chapter 5, the 4 pillars of friction-free culture, and well, I want to make sure everybody. We're about to dig into the middle of the book. I'll say the heart of the book for me when I was reading it. And I know that you mentioned Ken Blanchard as your friend. Some people say that, but I know you both go golfing together. You've written books together. I believe you and Dan Cathy have been together when Ken's been there from Chick-fil-A, back when servant leadership was going across the country. And that was before 9/11. I was at one of the very first, I think it was the first servant leadership where Ken actually came with some other people. But in any event, as we look at the middle of the book, and we have those 4 pillars: care, candor, accountability, responsibility. There's a fine line between caring and softness. Can you, because people, as an outsider of the Chick-fil-A culture, having been in it and then gone for 3 decades now, uh, how do you get into, how can we help people understand you got to care for your people, but at the same time you're not really soft? How do you balance that?
Yeah, so, we love and care about our people enough not only to reward them and applaud them for doing great work, but we're brave enough to redirect them when they're not playing for what we call an A, not protecting our own comfort zone at the expense of other people's development. So the book that I wrote with Ken Blanchard is called Helping People Win at Work. And the byline is, I'm not here to mark your paper, I'm here to help you get an A. And you know, it's our job as leaders and caring for people is to, when we need to redirect them. That's what a great coach does. If you think about a great coach never runs onto the field and steals the ball. What a great coach does is they spend a lot of time on the sideline observing the play so that they can give feedback to the player on how they can play a better game. And what value would a coach be if all they did was be a cheerleader, not a coach? And I love one of the um, Adam Grant, who you probably know of. He says it's easy to be a critic or a cheerleader. It's harder to be a coach. A critic sees your weaknesses and attacks your worst self. A cheerleader sees your strengths and celebrates your best self. A coach sees your potential and helps you become a better version of yourself. So to be a caring leader, you have to be not a critic, not a cheerleader, but a coach, which is, redirection is sometimes needed.
Um, I agree that. So in also back into the candor pillar there, it made me think about how do you structure the learning moment so you don't cause fear, faking, and hiding, so that you literally get to see all the learning moments across the organization. And I know that I've seen you talk on other YouTubes about that, but I'd love to
Yeah.
share that with our audience.
Well, you recognize that, when I first introduced the learning moment into the company, 30 years ago, nearly, I guess, because I've been refired a few years. But I said to people, I want you to share with me your positive and negative learning moments, and we actually put a program together to give people the confidence of trust that they could do that. And I said, send me each month, what are your learning moments, and we'll have a prize. At the end of the year, we'll have a big prize. And believe it or not, in the first month, I got very few replies because people weren't comfortable that they weren't going to be punished for a negative. So what did I do? I made heroes of those people. I rewarded them and applauded them, and next month I got more, and next month I got more. And once people really, became comfortable and confident about the fact that the learning moment was a positive outcome. And the other thing that's really interesting is, I could go back and really look at the history of WD-40. In 1953, in San Diego, there was a fledgling company called Rocket Chemical Company. It was in the business of making chemical products for the space industry. And there was a problem with condensation and corrosion in the umbilical cord of the Atlas space rocket. And the chemist there at the company, Rocket Chemical Company, started to formulate solutions. Formula One didn't work, 5 didn't work, 15 didn't work, 25 didn't work, 35, 36, 37, 38, and 39 didn't work. 39 learning moments. Each learning moment was a step closer to the solution. And guess what? Formula 40 worked. Born was WD water displacement 40th formula. So if we would not have had those 39 learning moments, I wouldn't be talking to you today. There wouldn't be any, dumbass would not be our superpower, and Alec, the soul sucking CEO, wouldn't be here.
I love it. So Gary, I'm going to pick on your book again, or pick on
Mm-hmm.
you maybe, and cause a memory here. But I love books that when you get to the end of the chapter, it kind of says, "Are you sure you learned this?" Or here's an action item. And so I specifically, and maybe it's because I'm in my refirement number 72 or whatever that might be, which for the audience, I believe means we're retired, but we're still trying to give back in a way that is meaningful, makes an impact. But at the same time, we are technically retired, I guess. Or some people wished I was retired, but that's a whole different idea. But in chapter 24, so I'm jumping all the way from 5 to 24. Your legacy is your ultimate why. Why would that be in a book like yours? Why bring that in? Why is that so important?
I have another very dear friend. His name is Dr. Marshall Goldsmith. Marshall wrote the book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. I've known Marshall for probably nearly 20 years now. In fact, I used that book in the course that I taught at the University of San Diego. I was with Marshall in New York, maybe it's 10 or 12 years ago now, and he said to me, Gary, got some advice for you. Now, when Marshall Goldsmith says that, you just say, yes, Marshall. He said, now, you got to get out on top and don't float into a void. So what do you mean by that, Marshall? He said, I've coached the top CEOs in the world, and he has. He said, and I've seen some of them that when they have moved on from when they are, they become lost souls. In fact, I've seen some of them nearly destroy themselves because of that. And you're not going to do that. Just because you're going to move from a VIP to a PIP, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be something. And a PIP is a previously important person. So he said, I want you to think about how you're going to take what you've learned over these 25 years. And he said, you've done with the people around you, you've done some wonderful stuff. And you're going to go out and you're going to share that legacy with the world. And I said, yes, sir. So then I rewrote my purpose statement, and my purpose statement from the day that I stood down, it became, I help leaders build cultures of belonging where love, forgiveness, and learning inspire a happier, more connected world. And I do that now through the speaking I do at events all around the world and my coaching. I coach 8 to 10 CEOs right now. Um, some of them are new CEOs, so I use my CEO scar tissue. Being the CEO of a public company for 25 years, I've got plenty of scar tissue, either with boards of directors or with Wall Street. And then others just want to become better leaders. So I really love that work, and it's great because they can influence their organizations, and they can help take that crappy employee engagement number that's out there now of 30% up to something we can all be proud of and send people home happy, which will make the world a better place.
Uh, so I didn't get into other than the learning moment in your two books today. Are there other areas of your life that you'd like to share with CEOs and directors, or a place for them to find you and understand
Mm.
more about you?
Yeah. Well, number one, I have a challenge for CEOs and directors that are out there right now. Go to my website, www.thelearningmoment.net, and take the dumbass quiz. I put a quiz together, and you can take the dumbass quiz, and the higher your dumbassery score, the further away from Alec you are. And once you've taken the quiz, I'll send you a PDF of here are 4 or 5 things that you can start working on right away to build a better culture in your organization. Or if you'd like to go to LinkedIn, you can also join the School of Dumbassery. And I have a group there which is called the School of Dumbassery, and I share a couple of times a week, again, more detailed learning that I've had along the way. This is not Gary spruiking how smart he is. This is truly talking about here's some of the scar tissue that I've learned from along the way. And I think, join me on LinkedIn and follow me. And I try to share meaningful information and learning that I get from some people and others. And in fact, I was just on a great podcast with Simon Sinek that went up last week, and Simon and I sat for a couple of hours, and he was able to take that down to a great conversation we had about, how important it is to make the world a better place.
Excellent. And I enjoy Simon's moments every morning when he sends those to me. So thank you. Um, so we've already hinted that they can go to LinkedIn. You have several profiles. Garry Ridge. You have the profile for the Learning Moment. Dumbassery School, I'll call it, or the Dumbassery University, since you and Ken are out there in Southern California around the universities. Uh, but I also want to kind of keep in mind that CEO, where we've talked about happy people, happy companies, happy communities, the happy world, the kindness worldwide that I know both of us have been involved with Kevin Smith. But at the same time, you're one of the few humans walking the earth that has what we'll call the 10 bagger, where you went from 250 million to over 2.5 billion of market cap. So I don't want any of our audience to think that because you put people and profits together, they were still the only way to care for people is you have to have the profits. And so there's a kind of a good balance there. And I know Truett Cathy, Dan's father, tried to instill that in me for the decade that I carried his luggage around the country. It was a wonderful experience for me, but truly to take care of people, you do have to have the funds to take care of people. So,
Well,
yeah.
Bill, profit is the applause of people doing great work.
Thank you. And we're going to take a second because I want to write that one down all the way.
So I go back to my algorithm. It's the will of the people times strategy equals the great outcome. And it's the will of the people is people doing great work. So profit is the applause of people doing great work.
How did I miss that quote before? I know now that I've seen it and heard it, but I'm going to lock it in. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you on today as we bring this to a close. Just want to make darn sure everybody knows Garry Ridge, two R's in Gary, for LinkedIn, thelearningmoment.net. The other areas we'll put at the end of this video here in just a few seconds. There'll be a still image of how to get a hold of Garry. And if you're looking for, and this is another Garry Ridge, your simple but not easy CEO coach, hunt down Garry. He's not too hard to find. Thank you so much for being our guest today, Garry.
Thank you for what you do, Bill. It makes an amazing difference in the world, and I appreciate you for that.
Thank you.